Hello everyone, this is Diego Saldivar, a Neurogame developer, and today I would like to give you my personal view of the BrainLink Pro by Macrotellect. It is this gadget I am wearing right now. First things first, it arrives in this very nice looking case. The BrainLink Pro has some channels here on your forehead, no gel needed. It's dry channels. They have uh, very good signal since you can tighten this back strap to make the skin really touch the electrodes, so it doesn't have as much problem when it comes to contact, at least. And on the ear we have a ground. It's not that uncomfortable, it's just a clip on, so it's not particularly uncomfortable to use. And in the case of this model, you can see some lights reflecting my inner state of mind. Red is for focus, blue is for calmness, and green is for appeal or attraction. However, if you want to look at your heart rate, that is not included in this specific model. You are also shipped this secondary headband, which has the phlethysmograph, I believe it's called, included, so that you can also check your heart rate into the computer. It's also quite comfortable, but it doesn't have these pretty lights on, so you win some, you lose some sometimes. The device in and of itself is very easy to use. Just put it on, clip it on, and press this button. And there is only one button on the device, and it sets up very quickly. It takes seconds for it to start broadcasting signals via Bluetooth. The Macrotellect support team was very kind enough to send me this dongle for my computer, even though my Windows 11 computer had very minor problems connecting with the Macrotellect in and of itself. It takes a little bit of a while for the standalone program to start receiving information or to kind of catch the BrainLink Pro. But I would suppose that this dongle is a bit more necessary for a Mac environment. If you check Macrotellect's documentation, it is quite obvious that the programmers have been working on an iOS environment, because there's much more support and detail when it comes to iOS rather than PC and Android. Although they do have an SDK for PC, which only works in Visual Studio, and they also have support for Android devices. That's the catch, though. If you download their Unity example, you will see in the documentation that you have to export the Android project. You cannot just run it from Unity. And believe me, I tried for weeks and weeks and weeks to be able to run this in Unity, but I suppose that the Bluetooth and GPS requirements are just impossible to simulate in Unity. Oh yeah, because this needs both Bluetooth and GPS to work. Otherwise, it just refuses to work if you don't have the GPS turned on your cell phone. But beyond that, I tried to see if I could maybe use their code to be able to run this in Unity as a PC program. It just doesn't work. I don't know what it is in their own libraries or how this device works, that it just doesn't have support for a PC platform out of the box for Unity PC platforms. So that was one thing. Now, the thing that made it a little bit frustrating to work with this from a game designer's point of view is that in order to be able to test functionalities, you have to export your work for Android Studio and then package in Android Studio to be able to check on your own phone or tablet if the functionality is working as intended, which is so many steps in between. Instead of being able to just hit play in Unity and check directly if your game is working as intended, there's so many intermediate steps to be able to do that. And even then, when you export, you have to set some code up before you build for Android in order to change one single file, which is a little bit of a headache. So Yes, you can develop for Android and iOS devices for the BrainLink Pro, but it's not very user friendly, and there's a few steps in between. So if you have the patience to do it, I mean, go ahead. I personally, sorry, I did not have the patience. I did a few tests here and there, but in the end, even though this is one of the most accessible headsets on the market when it comes to money and when it comes to aesthetics, but not when it comes to development. That being said, I still have hope for this kind of device because there is one example that is just very well done, and I would like to share that with you guys so that you understand why I am so hopeful for this technology, since it is quick to connect, it has low latency, and the possibility is there. Let me show you. You'll have to excuse the hacky setup, but this is what we have on a shoestring budget. Anyway, so right now, my Neuralink is off. If I turn it on, okay, now it's vibrating to tell me, okay, I'm on, and you're on. And there we see this icon telling us we are connected. So as you can see, it's very, very fast. Okay, now this is how to use the BrainLink. A few instructions. You can go through these instructions in Chinese, English, or Japanese, or if you already know what you're doing, like I do, you can either start the tutorial down below or skip to training, which is an interesting thing here. Now, here we have focus training, relaxation training, and gyroscope calibration. Let me show you the interesting part here. I think, in my opinion, the focus training is the most interesting. So here I have muted this guy so that I can speak on top of it, but basically it's telling me, okay, concentrate, and the more you concentrate, this apple will be able to float, right? So I have to go through a certain threshold for this apple to start floating. And once I reach that threshold in yellow, the apple will float. And it wasn't floating before because I was being given instructions, but again, it was muted. And so as soon as it's up there, I can close my eyes for a second, or even just wink will suffice for it to be destroyed. And then the next challenge comes in, and the more of course, the yellow line is being brought up, the more I concentrate, the more the pineapple will float. Here I'm not quite concentrating as much because I'm speaking to you guys, but I mean, I have some experience now. If I close my eyes, there we go. There's this noise that's being understood as a muscular movement. All right, and then we have a watermelon, which raises the bar a little bit more, and I really, really have to concentrate here. Let me try to see if I can concentrate. There we go. It's done. So as you can see, it's a small little game, but it does showcase that, yeah, this is something that can work. It's something that can be fun. And it doesn't have to have as much accuracy when it comes to the brain waves and the regions in which the brain waves are being generated. It just needs to have the minimum to be fun, and that's what I'm trying to prove. You'll have to excuse the fingerprints all over the place, but basically this is the demo that you can export in Unity, and you can see that it gives you raw data, which means that you can easily plug in all this information into Unity, just like you would for the graphic user interface. You would do that for any object that you might want to make float, explode, light up, or whatever it is that your game mechanic requires with brainwaves. But in order to be able to test this, you have to, again, export modified some files, and then update this again. This is just a bit clunky in my opinion, but can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Does it work? Yeah, it definitely works. And I mean, you can use Google Translate to translate the Chinese terms, which basically are the same things that you see in English, or just some quick documentation. And so as you can see, yes, it works. No, it's not very detailed. So I would not recommend this for scientific or medical purposes. Most likely it won't give you the kind of data that you need. But for game design purposes, if you're patient enough to export every 5 to 10 minutes to check that your work is going well, then go ahead and use it. Thanks to Alexander, the support guy who has been helping me out with all these little details having with Unity and exporting and things like that. Customer support is very polite and they work as much as they can to help you. They do have their limitations, of course. When I requested an Unreal SDK, they said, well, our engineers do not have any experience with it, so we can only help you with Unity, which is fair. So basically, here's the thing. Yes, it's very cheap. The components are good enough to give you the information you need for game design purposes. The SDK could use a little bit of work in my opinion, but at least is functional to a degree. And I mean, Macrotellect has been publishing small little games for these platforms for about 10, almost 15 years. And they are mostly focused on meditation and relaxation, but of course you and I know as game designers that you can do much more with these two metrics, well, three, if you take into account appeal, which apparently uses a little bit more battery. Oh, speaking of battery, this battery works quite well. It lasts for a few hours and the battery does not discharge overnight. My conclusion is that it's a very viable product for neurogame development. It just needs a little bit more work to completely become accessible. And that is my opinion of the BrainLink Pro as a game developer. I will continue searching for very accessible devices for the rest of the year to see if I can open the floodgates of the neurogaming market sooner than later. Thank you for watching this review. If you would like to connect with the fellow neurogaming community, follow my links below. You'll find that we are growing as a community of neurogame developers and prospective neurogamers. So keep up the good work and see you around. Goodbye.